Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my December reading vlog. So if you did not miss my past two iterations of this vlog, I do a monthly reading vlog where I talk about all the books that I'm not reading for other videos. In the beginning of December, this is going to be quite a sparse couple of books read because I am reading two very large series for other videos that are going up this month. But after those are done, I am good to read whatever the hell I want for the remainder of the year, and then of course into January I have, you know, set TBRs and stuff. But first up, I have read some things in December that I didn't end up, I read things at the end of November that I didn't end up talking about in my wrap-up, so I'm going to consider them December reads. So first up, I mentioned that I read Reckless Girls. Like, I started Reckless Girls. I don't remember if I wrapped it up or not in my last vlog or in my wrap-up, but it's basically about, so it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend are living in Hawaii, and they have this boat that they're trying to save up money to fix up so they can like travel the world or whatever. And the male main character, the female main character, it's like multiple points of view, but the female main character's boyfriend is gets approached by these two girls who say if he carries them to this like deserted coral reef island, they will pay him like 50 grand or something like that. So they go with the girls to this island, and then there's another couple that is there as well. It's alternating points of view between the female main character that has the boyfriend and then snippets of events that have happened between their relationship, like how they met and stuff, the relationship between the two girls, their friends, and then the relationship between this new couple. And then in present day, it's just like drama, like vacation drama. I did end up giving this 3 stars. I picked this up because I heard that it was a good mystery, and it's really just like a vacation drama with a very slight mystery and a murder in the last like 20%. It's not great. I didn't love it. And this sort of like vacation drama, sleeping with other people's partner, like that's not fun for me. I then read The Unwanted Guest. Never read anything by this author before, but this is basically about a group of people who get snowed in at this cabin in the mountains, I believe, and then people start dying and you're trying to figure out who it is. Like, small cast of characters, snowed in the mountains, very fun. Everybody has secrets, everybody has family, everybody has drama. They seemingly don't know each other, but some of them could be lying. Very interesting. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think it's a really good like claustrophobic locked door-ish mystery if you were looking for that for one, and I'm 100% going to pick up more from the author. And then I read The Appeal. I started this on audio, and this is actually told entirely through emails, so I had to pick up the physical book because I just couldn't do the emails you know, with the audiobook. So this is an epistolary mystery, and for the majority of this book, you don't know what the mystery is, but you are reading emails from a theater troupe who have all come together to start a fundraising committee for the owners of the theater troupe whose granddaughter has cancer, and they're trying to raise money to get this like this experimental drug from the US to the UK so that she can possibly be cured. And you're reading emails between the different troupe members, the different family members, all of that. Like, there's central characters for sure, but it's multiple people's emails and stuff that you're reading. And again, you don't really know what the mystery is, like why you know that something has happened because there are 2 people that are investigating a case that interject every once in a while, but you don't know what the actual, like what they're investigating for until about 60% of the way through, and then you find out what it is, like what happened, who it happened to, all that kind of stuff. I loved this. I loved the email format because there's so much hidden in an email because you don't know who's being honest. You don't know if the people that have the email are really the people that like say they're the people that they say they are, because anybody could create a dummy email. You don't know what's being said, if what's being said is truthful. You don't know if like what's being said is actually what's being said. You don't know what's being said offline. So you have to do like a lot of read between the lines, a lot of like trying to figure out the truth and like parse the truth together for yourself. And it's so fun. It's so fun. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I don't quite know what it would have made it like a 5. I did feel like the ending kind of petered out a little bit, because the very beginning, everything was so mysterious. And the further we went on, and once we found out what the case is about and who all is involved in everything, it kind of like lost the threads a little bit. But it was so fun. And I think this author has another one, but I think it's all from voicemails, I think, or something along those lines. And I want to read that one because this one was fantastic. Super fun format. I am currently 42% of the way through The Broken Girls. I read this author's, I think, debut thriller. This one, you're following 2 timelines. You have the present timeline. We have the heroine Fiona, and when she was like 13, her sister was murdered on the grounds of this old girls' boarding school. And they think it was her boyfriend, who is now in prison. But the case has like really stuck with her, and she's kind of been obsessed with it. And she's a journalist now, and so she is on the road like outside of the boarding school, and she notices a new sign go up for the sale of the property. Like someone bought the old boarding school and they're fixing it up. So she decides that she wants to investigate this school and its history and all that kind of stuff. And then the other timeline is girls who went to the school. I don't know, I don't think it's diary entries. I think it's just like their straight up point of view. And it's a couple of different girls and like why they were there, what happened while they were there, what happened to them, that sort of thing. It's pretty good so far. The thing I like about Simone St. James, at least the thing that I liked about the first book, was very ambiguous. You don't know if it's like actually a ghost or if it's a person. Like, you don't really know, and I enjoy that in a mystery. Any other setting, I hate that. Like, I want answers to things, but in a mystery, I don't mind like this, like a smidge of ambiguity. But not much has really happened in the way of like murder investigations. We don't really know what crimes she's looking into. She did a walkthrough with a dude. The woman who owns the property, her son lives in town, and she contacts him and asks if they can do a walkthrough of the property because she wants to do an article about the renovation and all that kind of stuff. And so they go, they do a walkthrough, they find some like weird stuff. There's mentions of this ghost, and then he gets a call from the people that are working on the property, like fixing it up and stuff, and they're like, well, we found a body in the well. So they go see the body gets removed, and so her and her boyfriend, Jamie, who's a cop, are investigating the girl, the body, her life, everything to go on there. So I don't know how those two relate. Like, I don't know how the boarding school and her sister's death relate, because the boarding school closed in, I think, the 70s. But it definitely wasn't open in the 90s when her sister was killed. So I'm wondering if it's just like the same person, or I don't know, because we know that the property is haunted, which is why I think that dude's mom bought it. The part that I left off at, she's about to go interview the woman. She's about to go interview the woman who actually just bought the house. Like, so that dude's mom, who hasn't done an interview in forever. So that's the update. As far as like physical books or ebooks or anything, I'm waiting until, like I said, those other series are wrapped up to start anything. I just have audiobooks going while I drive and stuff. But I do have some, can give you a little tidbit of what's to come at the end of the month, because like I said, once these other books are wrapped up, I can start. And one of the vlogs is getting posted. Like, I have to be done with that series. I have to be done with the books for that video, not this week that you're seeing this, which it's December 6th, but the following week I have to be done. So yeah, so that means that I have plenty of time in December, and I really am craving mysteries and historical romances. So on my Instagram, I asked people for like their favorite historical romances. Don't forget to follow my Instagram so you can be included in things like that. I just have to plug myself. But we have the next book in the Brazen and the Beast series by Sarah McLean. Loved that. I gave the first and second book 5 stars. We have The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is one of Agatha Christie's books. We have her Wicked Marquess, which is the second book in the Darling Duke series by Stacey Reed. I read the first and third book. I found the first one to be like good, and then I loved the third book, so I'm excited for the second one. We have Bombshell by Sarah McLean, which I don't know too much about, but I know it's a newer release, and I'm pretty excited for that. And then we have The Devil in Her Bed by Kerrigan Byrne, which is the second or third book. I think it's the third book in that, like, the Red Ladies or whatever series with All Scott and Bothered and 10 things, whatever the 10 ways to love a duke or whatever the hell that one is. Gave that one 5 stars, gave How to Seduce a Scot, or When a Scot Ties a Knot. I don't remember what it is, but I gave that one 2 stars. This is the third book, so it's The Last Friend. And then I also have The Business of Blood by Kerrigan Byrne, which I think is her, like, Victorian, like, murder mystery with a light romance subplot, which I'm excited about because I've heard good things about that one. So, lots of good books coming up. I also have When Beauty Tamed the Beast, which was a recommendation. And then I have some other mysteries that are coming up, hopefully in the next couple weeks. So I have a lot of good things to come once I wrap up these other books. So I'll probably talk to you again when I'm done with The Broken Girls and have some stuff, because like I'm already 50% of the way through, so there's not much else to update you on. Because obviously I'm not just gonna update you at the 75% mark, because it's like the shit's going down, you know. So I'm gonna update you when I am done with it, and hopefully and then we'll get into the next audiobook that I'm gonna start. I don't know if I have one. Hopefully I do. Hopefully Foe comes through, which is a horror that I have on hold. Lots of options, but I've been talking for entirely too long, going on 15 minutes, so we'll talk later.
Of 1974, about 2 years before the Viking spacecraft landed on Mars, I was at a meeting in England sponsored by the Royal Society of London to explore the question of how to search for extraterrestrial life.
my friends. It's been a while since we talked. It is December 13th. Excuse my cat running on the kitchen floor in the background. I did end up finishing, what was I reading the last time we talked? The Broken Girls. I gave it 3 stars. It didn't have the same feeling as the other Simone St. James that I wrote. I don't know if it just didn't work for me, but it was like decent. But I really have been spending most of my time reading the Blood and Ash series, and I still have to finish this one. This is how far I'm in before I can pick up some other books. But I did end up picking up the audiobook for A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. This is exactly what it sounds like it is. It is told in a language we can all understand. A Brief History of Time plunges into the exotic realms of black holes and quarks, of antimatter and arrows of time, of the Big Bang and a bigger God, where the possibilities are wondrous and unexpected. With exciting images and profound imagination, Stephen Hawking brings us closer to the ultimate secrets at the very heart of creation. In Stephen Hawking's landmark New York Times bestseller, whatever, now updated with a new introduction and 6 short essays on current science, one of today's greatest scientific minds explores such profound questions as: how did the universe begin, and what made it start possible? Does time always flow forward? Is the universe unending, or are there boundaries? Are there other dimensions in space, and what will happen when it all ends? I ended up checking out the audiobook for this, and then I wanted to follow along physically with it, so I got the paperback. And listen, if you are a long-term viewer of this channel, you're probably like, what the fuck? Because this just doesn't really seem like my jam. But I was reviewing goals for the new year, and one of my big goals is to branch out. Not just branch out in the romance genre, but branch out beyond that. Over the year, I have talked about fantasy and horror more on my channel, but I do enjoy reading nonfiction about psychology and other genres, but I just haven't really given myself the opportunity to, because I've always just focused on reads for this channel. So I decided that I wanted to dive into space and time, quantum physics, all of that kind of stuff. Like I said, I got about 50% of the way through the audiobook, and I'm gonna restart and start from the beginning. This is very, 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 very accessible if you are not a science bitch in any regard like me. Like, I'm having no issues understanding it, but it's a lot of theory. It's a lot of stuff. It goes back from Copernicus all the way to present day, or at least, when was this written? In 1988. So, and then of course the short stories, it looks like, are from 2017. But, you know, 1988, the theories that the science community was working with in time and space. And then there is an updated version of this that I want to read, but I learned a lot about this. I learned a lot of this when I was in, like we all learned, I'm assuming, a lot about this when we were in school, but I just don't remember because I just didn't care. So I never cared to, you know, retain the information, and now I do care. So I'm gonna go back through it, read it physically, and listen to the audiobook at the same time because I like the audiobook narrator. So I'm gonna go do that and we'll talk. I am 104 pages into A Brief History of Time, which is 56% of the way through. It was rough going. It was rough going there for a while. I did a lot of Googling, a lot of, what does this mean for dummies? Especially because there's an entire chapter on force of matter and atoms and particles and spin of particles and particle acceleration, and no. No, I didn't understand a lot of what's going on. Like, yeah, my tab, because I've been doing tabs at the end of each like section with like a summary. My summary was, I actually have no fucking idea. Particles don't collapse at high density, I guess. I don't know, like, I don't know what that was supposed to. It was like particles, spin of particles, and quantum mechanics, and how that relates to space and time, and like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. But then, then we get into black holes, which is like one of my favorite subjects, and I loved it. We learned a little bit about Stephen Hawking's opinion on space travel via via black holes, and just black holes in general, how they start, why they start, the theories around them, and all that. And stars in general, like how they came to be, the different types of stars, what they mean, how we can study stars to get an idea of space. And yeah, super interesting. Probably my favorite chapter so far. And then we're going into another chapter on black holes. So I'm gonna take a break for now. I need to game or do something else because I'm just quite exhausted reading this. Like I said, it's enjoyable and like it's a good read and I'm learning a lot. I'm gonna go like game or something and come back, read something else, read this. I don't know, but we'll be back later with something. Okay, bye. Okay, friends, I have some reading updates for you. I finally finished A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I enjoyed this book. I didn't rate it because I don't generally rate nonfiction and I don't know how I would rate this. But I'm honestly really proud of myself that I got through this. It was rough. Like there were several chapters that I quite frankly just didn't really understand. We're talking about string theory, quantum mechanics, all of that. And it was still interesting. Like I still enjoyed it. There's conversations about time travel and would that be possible, and the possibility of no Big Bang Theory and all of it. Very interesting. Like I said, this is from the 80s and it has been revised a little bit since it was written. I think it was revised in 2017. I'm not sure when he passed. This was revised in 2017. But it's not like all encompassing. It's just a revision of some of the theories and experiments that were sort of open-ended in the 80s when this was published. But I mean, interesting, like very interesting. We start off talking about what we know about the universe, theories, and how our knowledge of the universe has expanded. Goes into quantum mechanics. We talk about black holes. We talk about the forces of nature and like particles and stuff. We go into string theory, wormholes, and Stephen Hawking's like ultimate goal with what he wanted to do before he passed. And like his thoughts on like God and creation and all of that stuff. I definitely think my most interesting part, like the thing that I was most interested in, was wormholes and black holes, because like they're just fascinating. I do think he hits the nail on the head with a part in the very end. Also, he talks about Albert Einstein and like some other little known facts about some other famous scientists in the back, which is pretty cool, and I learned some stuff I didn't know. But there is a quote in the end that I think is great. What would it mean if we actually did discover the ultimate theory of the universe? We could never be quite sure that we had indeed found the correct theory, since theories can't be proven. But if the theory was mathematically consistent and always gave predictions that agreed with observations, we could be reasonably confident that it was the right one. It would bring an end to a long, glorious chapter in humanity's intellectual struggle to understand the universe. But it would also revolutionize the ordinary person's understanding of the laws that govern the universe. In Newton's time, it was possible for an educated person to have a grasp of the whole of human knowledge, at least in outline. But since then, the pace of development of science has made that impossible. Because theories are always being changed to account for new observations, they're never properly digested or simplified so that ordinary people can understand them. You have to be a specialist, and even then, you can only hope to have the power to grasp of a small portion of scientific theories. Further, the rate of progress is so rapid that what one learns at school or university is always a little bit out of date. Only a few people can keep up with the rapidly advancing frontier of knowledge, and they have to devote their whole life to it and specialize in a small area. The rest of the population has little idea of the advances that are being made or excitement that they are generating. 70 years ago in Edgington, if Edgington is to be believed, only 2 people understood the general theory of relativity. Nowadays, tens of thousands of university graduates do, and many millions of people are at least familiar with the idea. If the complete unified theory was discovered, it would only be a matter of time before it was digested and simplified in a simple way, taught in schools, and learned in outlines. We should then all be able to have an understanding of the laws that govern the universe and are responsible for our existence. So I love that part. Like, there's a lot of this first part that I love, but I think Hawking says it so perfectly, and the fact that one of the smartest minds in science understands on the most basic level that not everybody understands the way he does, and that we don't all have the access to the education and the theories and the ability to follow these new discoveries at all times. I think even though it's a very basic concept, it's a little bit shocking to me that he would even consider that. I know that sounds, I don't know, dumb, but that's just that's just never something that I think that scientists and like celebrity, like, I don't feel like they ever consider what their actions, how it impacts the everyday person, and how you're making all of these grand discoveries, but I might know nothing about it. Like, you might discover the powers of the universe and where we came from, and the unified theory, which is the idea of like all of the theories of the universe coming together into one. You might discover that, and I would never know, or I would never understand. Because it's just not attempted to dumb it down to the layperson, like to make sure that the general populace understands it and understands where we've come from. So I really enjoyed this. It was a great start to everything: time, space, general theories, quantum mechanics, all of that kind of stuff. It was good, and I'm excited to continue my journey. So then, like I said in a previous clip, I ended up getting the Letters of Vincent van Gogh last night, and I also got Letters to a Young Poet. This is a lot smaller than I anticipated because the writing is freaking massive. I think most editions are 80 pages. This one is only 39 pages, but like I said, the writing and the format is like huge. So this is basically the story, or this is basically a collection of letters between a famous German poet, Rainer Maria Rilke. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. This is how you pronounce it.
Rainer Maria Rilke.
This starts off with a German soldier who sent letters to
Rainer Maria Rilke
that included some of his verses and asked if they were like good enough, basically, to be published, his opinion. And we then have several letters kind of diving into Rilke's opinion on life and creation and love and all of that. Very it's hard to understand at some points. The writing is quite dense. For it to be so short, it took me quite a while to get through this, but there is in particular a letter of talking about grief. We don't get the letters that the soldier sent, so you kind of have to infer based on what he's saying. I would read the whole letter to you, but there are certain portions of it that I that I absolutely love. So it says, and this is why it's so important to be alone and attentive when one is sad, because the apparently eventless and motionless moment when our future enters into us is so much nearer to life than that other manifestly chance point of time when it actually happens to us as if from without. And then he goes into the quieter, the more patient, the more open we are in our grief, the deeper and more unerringly does the new thing enter into us. The better do we make it on our own, and the more does it become our fate. And when one day it happens, that is to say, when it passes us out of us to others, we will feel ourselves in our innermost being related to and near to it. And then another part, men have already had to change their conceptions of many processes, and they will gradually come to realize that what we call fate comes out of human beings themselves and does not come upon them from without. My favorite part of this whole letter, it's quite a long letter, but it's mostly just talking about like how people deal with their fate and their sadness and their grief. But the anxiety men feel before the inexplicable has not only impoverished the existence of the individual, through it the relations of human being to human being have been limited, lifted as if it were from a riverbed of infinite possibilities onto a fallow bank to which nothing happens. For it is not only laziness that brings it about the human relationships repeat themselves from one occasion to the next with such unspeakable monotony and staleness, but it is also shyness of any new experience whose end cannot be foreseen, to which men do not think they are equal. We are not prisoners, no traps or snares are set around us, and there is nothing that should frighten or torment us. We have been sent into life as being the element to which we are most nearly corresponded, and moreover, through thousands of years of adaptation to this life, we have become so like it that when we stay still, through a happy mimicry, we are hardly distinguishable from everything that surrounds us. We have no reason to be mistrustful towards our world, for it is not against us. If it has horrors, they are our horrors. Perhaps at the very bottom of every horror is something helpless that wants help from us. The August 12th, 1904 letter is fantastic. But I mean, this whole book is great. I mean, it's short little letters about his thoughts on life and love and human relationships and grief and desire and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, it took me a while to read it, but it was an interesting read, and I don't know if I'd ever pick up anything by these actual poems, but it was a worthy read. I feel like I don't know if I'd really recommend it. But if you are obsessed with artist poems, artist minds, then it would probably be a good one. I am also about 30% of the way through Daring and the Duke. So this is the third book in the Bare Knuckle Bastards series. So in totality, this series follows a group of siblings, and they were all raised by a very angry, manipulative duke who originally could never have an heir, and his duchess cheated on him and produced a girl. So he pretended that the girl was a boy. He baptized her and gave her a man's name so that he could claim that he had an heir and keep the dukedom, because if an estate doesn't have an heir before the duke dies or after the duke dies, it goes back to the crown and is presumably meted out to somebody else. But so he pretended that he had a duke that he would raise and, you know, could take his place so that his estate wasn't taken. And then he also had 3 other sons with 3 other women, and when they are like 11 or 12, he brings them to his estate where the woman is already, her name's Grace, is already living. We have Wit, Devon, and Ewan. So they're called Marwick. Ewan is Marwick, Devon is Devil, and Wit is Beast. And Devil is the first book, Wit is the second book, and Ewan is this book along with Grace. So Grace and Ewan had a budding relationship when they were kids, and then there was this event that took place basically their father made them compete to become the Duke. So they had to fight each other. They were imprisoned in dark rooms, a bunch of different stuff. But when they were kids, they made a plan that whoever became the Duke would then protect all of the others. And so we had this event that has been alluded to in the other 3 books of something that Ewan did to them that caused them to run away and move to London. And that's where they became the Bare Knuckle Bastards, because they started fighting. And now they're like these criminal kingpins. He tried to kill Grace, or he did something to Grace. I think the old Duke was gonna force him to like stab her or something, and he was really gonna do it, and so they escaped in some way. And so in the beginning of this book, picks up where the last book left off, which was Ewan blew up some ships that were carrying some product for the Bare Knuckle Bastards, and hurt Wit's wife and just killed like a bunch of people and caused a bunch of damage. And Grace runs into him. She has now assumed the identity of Dahlia. I think it's Delilah, or Dahlia. It's Dahlia. She has assumed the idea of Dahlia, and she runs a brothel for women, basically like a private club for women. And she discovers him. My camera cut off because I was talking too long. She catches him leaving the site of the explosion, and he's injured, and so she nurses him back to health with the intention of like letting him go without him finding out that she's alive, because they've been telling him that she's been dead this whole time. And he wakes up and she is in the room, and he realizes that she's alive, and they basically have a fight. She basically says like, I want to fight you for my vengeance because you killed the girl that I used to be. You ruined our lives. We're here because of you, and you betrayed our trust. And so they, for lack of a better word, do get out, and he refuses to hit her back. And so she finally says like, I am not the girl that you used to love. That girl is dead. I'm not her. You can't bring her back. And this is like the worst thing that she could ever say to him. And so he loses all desire to fight, or to just like stand his ground in general. And he was like, you're supposed to be, this is my favorite line from what I've read so far, but he says, you were supposed to be my duchess. She said, why would I accept being a duchess when I was born a duke? Love it. She basically tells him, don't ever come back or I'll kill you if you do. We skip forward a year, and we see her in her brothel, and she gets noticed that a duke is back in town, and he's holding a ball, and he's looking for a wife. So she goes to the ball because she knows it's him. She goes to the ball, and they pretend that they don't know each other. And where I left off, they were about to dance or something like that, or they had some like flirty banter back and forth. She doesn't realize that he knows that it's her because she's like in a mask and she has like a wig on and stuff. And so she thinks he doesn't recognize her, and he does recognize her. His chapters are delightful. I love the heroes in this series. Like, they're these standout characters 100%. Like, I like the heroines and stuff, and Dahlia might be my favorite heroine in this series. We'll see. But I think I've given all the other books 5 stars. The heroes and the things that they say in these books are fantastic. I love their points of view. Ewan is completely obsessed, completely enamored. He calls her a goddess and says just she's the best thing he's ever seen. And I love it. I love it. I love historical romance. Historical romance just gives me like this like ache in my soul that like no other genre does. And I think in 2023, I'm going to focus on more historical romance because I just love it so much. And my favorite books are oftentimes found in historical romances. Like, my 5 stars are often found in historical romance. So it's so good, and I'm very excited to keep going. I had planned on updating you earlier because we had just gotten a line. Let me see if I can pull it up. We had just gotten a line that I wanted to read to you because, like I said, his point of view is just so good. So basically what happened was, in this ball, he decorates the ball like the trees around the manor that they used to go to be together. And he like basically goes all out and decorates his ballroom as a forest, like exactly how she remembers it. And so we're in his point of view. She says, "Why the trees?" The word took him by surprise, and he met her eyes behind the mask. The trees were for her. What would she say if he told her that? If he yanked the mask from her eyes and said, "You know why the trees? The trees because you loved them. This place because you loved it. All of it for you, forever." Oh my god. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to continue. And this might be the best book in the series. And they've all been 5 stars. So I need to go back and read the other 2, especially the first one, because I don't remember it that much, but I remember loving it. Yeah. And then I did start another horror book, but I don't really want to talk to you about it until I finish it, because it's really short, and this update is very long. So basically what I plan is I'm going to finish Daring in the Duke, or whatever it's called, because it's due back in like 2 days, and then I will start some of the other historicals on my list. But I also want to get into the Letters of Vincent van Gogh, which is over like 460, but it remains to be seen how the writing style is. So yeah, this has been a really long update. But I'm gonna come back to you when I have more to say about Daring in the Duke. Is that what it's called? Because I'm loving it. So we'll be back to talk later, I guess. friends, happy 18th of December. I ended up finishing Daring and the Duke, and I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I'm so happy that I have finished out the series, and it will definitely be a historical romance series that I reread at some point because I love the heroes. I think the relationships in this series are fantastic. I love the way that it wrapped up. This book definitely focused more on the relationship than it did on the plot. But I am happy that it did because there was a lot of work that needed to be done to repair the relationships with Ewan. I do think that the repairs between Ewan and the brothers was a little fast for my liking, and I would have liked to see a little bit of that growth with Ewan before the end of the book. Like that 1 year skip, it would have done for us to maybe read a little bit of the character work that he did for himself before he came back and tried to win her affections. But they were true equals in every sense of the word. I loved the way that this series wrapped up. I love the relationships in this series, and I love the heroes in this series, and I think that they're just fantastic romances. So I gave that 5 stars. I also finished The Laws of the Skies. So this is a pretty short horror. This is what I was talking to you about the other clip. It is only 160 pages, and it is compared to a mix of Winnie the Pooh and Lord of the Flies or something like that, which is just a pretty odd combination. But this is basically about a bus load of 12-year-olds or 6-year-olds. Yeah, 6-year-olds who go on a camping trip with their teacher and some chaperones, and then one of the 6-year-olds starts killing people. And some of them die, like the deaths are done in various other ways. I didn't rate this, but I don't quite know what I would give it. I think I would give it like a 2-star. I didn't really like this, and I don't know what about it I didn't like. The points of view were very choppy, and it was a little like, I feel like it lost the thread a little bit, and I was sort of confused. I don't think it handled the point of view change very well, and I don't know if I like the writing. The writing felt very simple. It just wasn't really my thing. I didn't get the whole Winnie the Pooh thing. I don't know if that was so that people would like talk about it, because like that's kind of a weird analogy to make, but it wasn't like my favorite horror. And then I also got about 30% of the way through When Beauty Tamed the Beast. This is by Eloisa James, and it is one of the recommendations that I got when I asked over on my Instagram for y'all's favorite historical romances. I have read one other Eloisa James, and I can't remember which one it was, and I can't remember anything about it, but I think I rated it pretty highly. But this one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I think all of the books in this series are some sort of fairy tale retelling. And in the beginning, the heroine Lynette is ruined. People think that she is impregnated by a prince who was courting her, because she like wears a gown that like gaps, so it makes her look pregnant, and so she gets ruined, and the prince obviously isn't going to marry her, and so she is set up by her father with the hero's father, who is a duke. Hero is the Beast, obviously, in the equation, and he is a doctor, and he is said to be kind of a dick, but he runs a hospital out of his estate, and she ends up, you know, going there to meet him and marry him and all that kind of stuff. At the 33% mark, they are flirting back and forth, but it's kind of agreed upon that they're not actually going to marry, and that she'll just have to leave the country because obviously she's ruined because people think she's pregnant. They have some like bantery moments. Like obviously they're gonna get married, but I'm not hating it, but I'm also not really enjoying it. I don't really like Lynette. She is the like everybody's in love with her sort of character. Like every guy thinks she's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen, and she's, you know, she's a seductress and all that kind of stuff. And then she's magically like super intelligent and super witty, and she's all, you know, not like other women, she's better than other women sort of character. And like she sort of characterizes herself that way as well. She like talks about how pretty she is, and she talks about how, you know, she can use her wiles to get what she wants. But then she's also characterized as like a girl who is very intelligent and uses her feminine wiles to get men to leave her alone. So her character just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I wish that Elisa James had gone with one or the other. Either she's like into the attention and likes being attractive and likes having men's attention, or she's very against men and all of that. I think she's trying to set it up as if the heroine uses her beauty as a shield so that people don't get close to her, but it's just not very convincing. And then the hero himself is like, you know, the grumpy, scarred, wasn't in an accident, and I don't like this. Like, he wasn't an accident that made him impotent, but we know he can get an erection, so I don't know quite what that is. I don't know if it's like a mental block and now she's magically going to cure that, or what. I just don't like this plotline. Like, I understand that erectile dysfunction is like a thing that men deal with, and it's, you know, nothing to be ashamed about, and I like that we talk about it in romance. I just don't like the way that it's used, the way that it's talked about. And obviously, like, the heroine is never rude or nasty about it, but I don't know, I just never feel like I enjoy it. So yeah, that's the situation. I'm sure he's gonna start popping boners, which he already has, for her, and they're gonna live happily ever after, and it's gonna be Grumpy Sunshine or whatever. But it's not bad. I like Elisa James's writing. I think her writing tends to be a little bit more refined than some other historical romance authors that I, you know, read and enjoy, but they're just never my favorites. Like, I can't even recall to mind, like I said, the other books that I've read by her. But yeah, so I'm 33% of the way through that, and it's not bad. Like I said, it's readable. I pick it up and I can read it, I can get through it. I haven't touched the Vincent van Gogh book, and I don't know if I will until I finish my library books. So that is the update. We will talk again when I am through When Beauty Tamed the Beast, or whatever it's called. I've mostly just been playing a lot of video games because I just need a break from reading. So yeah, we will talk later. Okay friends, it is the 30th of December, so I am going to wrap up the reading vlog here because I don't think I'm gonna finish anything else. And yeah, so things I'm currently reading and I'm going to end up taking into the new year. I am 468 pages into my reread of Chain of Iron. I decided to reread this for the new book that's coming out in January. I'm really loving it. Like the first one, I'm finding a lot of things that I missed. I am heavily annotating the book, and I just love being with her characters. So love it. I'm also 102 pages into the Letters of Vincent van Gogh. This is basically letters from Vincent to his brother Theo, and this collection was put together after his brother's death, and it's not quite as dense as I was anticipating. It is pretty accessible, but it has a lot to do with art and also like his religious beliefs. So there are like entire chapters of, or entire letters rather, him, and especially in the beginning, because in the first part of his adulthood he wanted to be a minister, and so he went to seminary school and he was, you know, at these different churches and stuff, and he includes some religious fervor is the best phrase. He was obsessed with religion, quickly transferred over to art, and I say quickly because it's the transition spans many years, but we're only seeing letters, so obviously it's between one letter and the next. At this point I am like not very far in. There have been some moments that I have really, like some letters that I've really found profound and that I absolutely loved, and then there's others that just, like, they don't interest me. There are lists of artists that he really enjoys, paintings that he really enjoys, recommendations to his brother for books to read and things like that. And obviously that's not the sort of art and stuff that I read. I don't really care about paintings in that way, really. So the references and the lists and the fervor for art in that way is kind of a miss for me. But everything else in relation to Van Gogh's philosophies on life and his state of mind, and watching the differences in the way that he talks to Theo, and then the insights that we get from our narrator into what he was actually going through, or what he was actually behaving like in between the letters, is very interesting, because I think there was a lot of subversion on Vincent's part. Partly because it's his brother and he wants to have a good relationship with his brother, and he wants his brother to look at him in a good light. Also partly because his brother was essentially funding his life, and so he obviously wanted to prove to his brother that his funding was you know, going to a good place and it was not being wasted. So a lot of the letters are boasting, and then we'll get snippets from our narrator of the person that compiled the letters, and it will tell you the kind of the truth of like how his family saw him at that time and how he was behaving. So he definitely led a tumultuous life, a very transitory life, not very long, but I'm definitely taking this pretty slow. 88 pages into the Journals of Sylvia Plath. So this is a compilation of her journals from 1950 to 1962. This is just her time going to college, because there were journals that she wrote up into her death that I think have since been destroyed by her husband. But this is basically just, again, her thoughts. Like it's really exhausting to read, but it's very interesting. She vacillates between melancholy and doomsday thoughts, and then we'll have another, the very next letter is how much she loves life and how popular she is and how she has this new boyfriend. She was very self-centered, but she also was she had a lot of self-hatred. There was a lot about herself that she didn't like, and she put a lot of stock of her value and her presence in the world and her worth in other people. How many friends she had, did she have a boyfriend, did she have someone that was romantically interested in her, did she have multiple boyfriends, multiple people that were romantically interested, was she going out, was she partying? If she wasn't, she felt terrible about herself and like she had no worth. And then she also has some really amazing insights into war and different things. Like it's a very all-encompassing journal, and I think she was a fascinating woman and her mind was fascinating. But again, these two are just kind of like really exhausting to read, so I'm definitely taking them a little more slowly than I would usually. Usually I am one to sit down and finish a book. Yes? What? Hi. Usually I am one to sit down and finish a book, you know, in a couple of sittings, a couple of days, and I'm definitely taking this very slow. That's sort of why I decided to reread Chain of Iron while I'm reading these, because like I said, they're quite exhausting and they're not as dense as I anticipated, but they still are emotionally taxing to read. So it's nice to have something that I'm familiar with and also really emotionally, that makes me happy emotionally. So yeah, those are the things that I'm currently reading. I think I finished some stuff that I didn't update you on just because this video is getting quite long, and so I wanted to wrap it all up in one clip. So I believe the last time I talked to you, I was reading Her Wicked Marquess. I did end up finishing this and I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this a lot more than the first one. So this is about Marianne and Nicholas. In the beginning of the book, Marianne gets told by her family that she's going to marry this duke, I believe. and she really has had no intention of marrying anybody. She's the leader of this band of sinful wallflowers, which is the title of the series, and her entire purpose of this band of girls is to get women to pursue their dreams and do sinful things. And so she is trying to ruin herself so that the Duke will not want to marry her. And then we also have Nicholas, who is in society because he is trying to get revenge for a crime that was committed against his friend that ultimately led her to suicide. And there are some people in society that he has like befriended that he is trying to take down in retaliation for this crime. And he is like besotted with her. He's very interested in her. He's intrigued by her. He finds her to be, you know, not like other women of the time period. She's quick-witted, and she kind of meets him halfway, you know, spars with him, and she's just an intriguing woman. And so ingratiates himself in the periphery of her life, and they enter into like this plan together, I guess, where they have trysts and they meet each other and they hang out and stuff like that, and they become friends, and then it becomes more. Nicholas is everything that I love in a historical romance hero. He's fantastic. He has the like broody past, the revenge plot, and it's just, I loved it so much. I think the heroine was fantastic. She's my favorite kind of historical romance heroine. So the couple themselves is great. And overall, it's just a 5-star. It's not quite on the level of other 5-star historical romances, but I enjoyed my time, and I found the couple to be like very swoony, and I absolutely loved their romance. So I'm definitely very impressed with that one. And then I read The Devil in Her Bed, which is the last book in the this series. Gave the first one 5 stars, second one 3 stars, and I ended up giving the second one 2 stars. I ended up giving this one 3 stars as well. So this was kind of my anticipated book. I didn't know if I was going to continue the series just because I had given that second one 2 stars, but I had read the first one and given it 5 stars after I had read the second one. So I decided that I wanted to pick up the last book in the series, see how I felt, and this was kind of an anticipated one because the overarching plot of this series is all of the women have some sort of secret life going on, and we knew that this heroine was not who she pretended to be, that she had a secret identity, that she had taken because when she was younger, her parents were servants in a duke's household, and they end up getting slaughtered along with her family. So she assumes the identity of the soon-to-be duchess, the little girl, and she is trying to get revenge, another revenge story. The problem that I had was it didn't feel like a Kerrigan Byrne, and it didn't really do much. He was someone from her past, and he had a hidden identity, and that was sort of the issue that I had the entire time, was hidden identity. She's hiding her identity from him. She knows who he is, but she is pretending to be someone that he loved when they were children. She doesn't tell him that that she's not that girl, and that's the conflict of the book, and I hate that. I don't like hidden identity that is done like that, because then it makes the relationship feel very fake, because she was being honest in regards to her feelings and her behavior and who she was as a person now, but you can't lie about a past that you have with someone, because that past affects the future with that person. It affects how they view you. Even if you're a completely different person now, that still plays a part in your relationship, and you can't lie about that. And it's just, I was really enjoying it until I got to the point where I realized that that was going to be the conflict, and it just petered off for me. So then I read Becoming. This is Michelle Obama's memoir, and I listened to the audiobook. It's narrated by her. It starts when she is a child and goes all the way up until after her husband leaves office. I didn't rate this because I don't generally write nonfiction, particularly memoirs, because you can have an opinion about someone's life, but I don't feel like a qualitative value should be placed on it. But I enjoyed it, less so when it became about like the presidency and campaigning and stuff like that. I think that the insight into her as a person, she's an interesting person, and she's very gung-ho to help her community, and that's like her passion, and I loved reading about that. I liked reading about the early relationship that she had with Barack and sort of their passions together and their strives they made in their own community in Chicago. But once it became about politics and campaigning and all of that, I was not really all that interested in it. Even though it's not necessarily like following the presidency to a T, because it is a lot about how she handled his campaign and how she handled the presidency as a mother and as, you know, the first lady. It's still not, it's just not interesting to me. So then I decided to read a couple of graphic novels. So I didn't rate any of these either. But first up, I read 10 Days in a Madhouse. This is a graphic novel adaptation of the original book, and it's basically about Nellie Bly, who was a journalist, true story, a journalist who takes on the job of going to a local sanitarium or you know, mental health facility and becoming a patient and discovering the treatment of the people and how these facilities were often used as punishment for women, and how women were often locked up regardless of their mental state, whether they were just seen as too emotional, or their husbands didn't want to deal with them anymore, or they were just ill, or they were just poor and the government didn't know what to do with them, or people didn't know what to do with them, so they would lock them up. And the treatment that these women went through, and it's hard to read because it is a graphic novel, so you're seeing scenes of what's going on. It's very well done, it's very well illustrated. It definitely follows like the story well, and it's very text heavy. So it's graphic. It's a graphic novel in every sense of the word. It is a novel that has been, like, graphics have been added. So I thought it was fascinating. I was talking too long. My camera cut me off. So then I read Night Cry. This is a graphic novel about a girl who ends up summoning a witch during a ritual one night, and this witch, I guess, is supposed to grant her a wish. And she ends up just befriending the witch, and it is her friendship with that girl, and then a girl that comes into her bookstore every once in a while, and it was cute. I didn't have any like strong feelings towards it. I then read Cruel Summer, which is, from what I gather, like a long spanning comic series, and it seems to be about a family of criminals, and in this one in particular you're following two points of view. You are following the father, who is a thief, and he has been in and out of prison. He meets a woman that he becomes obsessed with, and then you're also, and they are planning a crime, and then you're also following his son, who gets roped into the story. Not really my thing. Crime stories aren't really interesting to me, so that is kind of just is what it is. And then I read Just Peachy, comics about depression, anxiety, love, and finding the humor in being sad, and also Wired Up Wrong, which I would consider them similar to each other. They're both graphic memoirs, and it's both authors' experience with depression, anxiety, general mental illness, and just kind of life. And I would consider these more like Instagrammable graphic novels, like something that I would consider what I would see if I went on these people's Instagram feed. Just little graphic, like little vignettes of tips and tricks and like little funny comics about being sad. So not anything too profound, but if you are into reading like little relatable things, or things that, you know, maybe make you feel like you're not alone, or things are not, you know, that make you feel like other people can relate to what you're going through, then I think you'll enjoy them. Those are all of the things that I have to talk to you about. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to finish anything else, so if you have made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying this series where I do month-long vlogs. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on anything that I read in the video. Let me know how your December went, how your holidays went if you celebrate. I would love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for spending the year with me, and I'm excited to go into the next year with all of you guys. So if you don't have anything to say besides all of that, leave a planet, a star of some sort, and I will catch you guys in my next one. If you are looking for more content from me, you can check out my Instagram and my podcast Instagram. You can also check out on my podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. We are hoping to come back in the new year. We're taking a brief hiatus, but you know, so thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.